Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a little while since I've put a new video out, but if you're a subscriber, thanks for sticking around. And you might have noticed some changes. I did move this past year, so that's part of the reason why there hasn't been a lot of new content. I've also just been super busy and this past year's been crazy. And hey, it's kind of crazy for everyone right now. So you may find yourself with a lot of extra time, and if you need something to do, you're in the right place because I have a new painting tutorial for you. So join me while we bring in the new season with this springtime themed fairy garden painting, and let's get started. Before you start painting, you're going to need something to paint on. So today I'm using a canvas. You could use whatever type of surface you want. It could be a canvas board, cold press, paper, a t-shirt, a piece of wood, whatever you want to paint on. This is about 11 by 14-ish size, but it can be whatever size you want to paint on as well. You are also going to need a couple more supplies, something to put your paint on. I have a paint palette here, and these are the colors we're using today. So I just have my paint palette, and you can mix on this and put your paint on it. So you're gonna need some brushes. I'm just using really cheap brushes that you could get at your local hobby store in a variety of sizes. You want some water to rinse your brushes out. So I just have a little mason jar with some water in it. Just some good old paper towels to wipe your brushes on. And that's it for supplies. Step one for this painting. We're gonna start with the background, and we wanna mix up a really light blue color. So I'm gonna grab some white, a teeny tiny bit of blue, mix these together. And I also wanna put a teensy bit of yellow in there. And we're gonna go ahead and start in the center of our canvas. And I'm just using the bigger brush, like the biggest one I grabbed, something about that size. And I'm using short little brush strokes to give it some texture. I'm gonna go even lighter in the center, so I'm just gonna grab just a little bit of white. Put that right in the center to lighten up that. Now you don't want to let this dry before you start adding the green around it. And since we're starting in the center, we're gonna start with the lightest, well, a lighter green, and we'll work our way to like a medium to dark green, and then probably back to light greens again. And I'm gonna continue just mixing in the same pile. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more yellow and blue to make a nice green out of that. And we're just gonna start taking this around the blue. Now you wanna leave a little bit of that blue showing, because that's supposed to be like the sky showing in the trees back there. It's kind of abstract though. Imagine like a photo kind of blurred out of focus. Now again, we're doing these kind of random short brush strokes, almost like little dabs, or like, I guess, drawing little X's. Kind of soften this here. I'm gonna continue going all the way around. Okay, so now I want to start making it a little darker out around the edges. So create a nice like border. So I'm gonna go back to my green color. I'm gonna add more blue to it and more yellow. For more of like a medium green. And now I'm just gonna continue around this area, but I'm gonna ignore the bottom for right now. Okay, so at this point, I've got just kind of a lighter green and now a darker green. Now I want to kind of go back and add a few more variations. So I'm just going to play around with this mixture of green. Try adding a little bit more yellow or a little more white here and there. Okay, so I'm going to try a couple different colors in here to get some slightly different variations of your light green and your dark green. And just kind of go back and forth and just incorporate these in. So just kind of dab them in, just so you have a variety of different greens. You want the lighter colors in the center because we imagine that's where our light is coming from. And you would want to keep your darker colors towards the edges because that's where your shadows would be. And that will create a nice effect. And let the paint do the work for you. So let it kind of work and blend on its own. Now we're going to use very similar colors on the bottom, but this part we want to make it look from a distance like maybe this is a body of water. So we're going to change up our brush stroke pattern. So instead of doing the like little dabbings, dabs, we're going to go horizontal. So I'm going to go back to my blue color, and because I want this to be slightly darker than the sky, because if this was the sky reflecting in water, reflections are always just a tiny bit darker. Go back to my first color with the blue and the white. I'm just gonna make it up again right over here, but this time I'm going just a little bit more blue. And we're gonna go side to side. All right, so we put a little bit of blue, and now we're gonna take a little bit of green on the edges, and again, side to side, horizontal brush stroke. And you want to let this just kind of overlap and mix into the blue a little bit. Leave a little bit of the blue just kind of open in the center. And this will be the reflections of the foliage. And you'll want to vary up the green colors down here too. So again, play around with lighter and darker versions just by adding more yellow or more white. And then just some final little touches, I'm going to go in with some really pale, like more of almost a yellow color to hit some highlight. So this is my dirty brush that had a little bit of remnants of green on it, and mixed up some white with a little yellow. So a really pale yellow color. And then I'm just gonna take this along right where I think the sun would be shining through here and just do some final little highlights. And I can even do this down on the bottom. And I'm just gonna go in and do any last touch-ups with any of the darker or lighter colors that I think it needs. The extra dark colors down here. so for the next part, we're gonna add in our vines for our flowers. So we're gonna mix up another green. We're gonna do a darker green because we wanna make sure it stands out from the rest of the greens we have on there already. So we're gonna go back to our little mixing palette, and this time we're gonna mix, just go right back on here, some blue and some yellow to make our green base. You wanna make pretty dark green, so you're gonna go a little heavier on the blue. And then to make it a deeper shade of green and set it off from the rest of the background, we're gonna add a little tiny bit of this reddish magenta color. You wanna be careful you don't do too much because it will turn purple. All right, so now I have a really dark, deep green color. You can design your vines however you want. I'm basically just gonna start them from the bottom and just kind of have them winding all the way up to the top. So, oh yeah, and I'm using a smaller brush now. So definitely want to use a smaller brush and just use the thin edge of the brush. Now I'm just going to start adding some leaf shapes. And you can have these wherever you want. You want some leaves pointing up, maybe some leaves pointing down. If you feel more comfortable using a smaller brush to do your leaves, then do so. And you can have some of these going right off the edge of the canvas. Some of them can overlap some of these other shapes. So now I want to go in and give a little bit more depth to these little vines. So I'm gonna go in and make a lighter green and highlight them. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more yellow to my green and maybe even a touch of white just to soften it. We'll go like a half a shade lighter or so, maybe a full shade lighter. And of course, all of our lighter highlights are gonna go the direction that the sun is coming from, where your light source is coming from. I'll go one shade even lighter now. So I'll add even more yellow and more white. And we're gonna use this as just as a highlight, just on the edges of some of the leaves. We're gonna use this very sparingly. Okay, so I think I'm gonna add one more little vine coming out right here. Again, you can change up your mind any old time. One more. So now we're gonna add some flowers to our scene. We're gonna do just a couple of fully bloomed flowers. And then maybe a few flower buds. And we'll go ahead and start with those little flower buds. So you can use a smaller brush like this one, or if you feel more comfortable, an even smaller brush like this one. I'll actually start with this little one here for the flower buds. I think a pink color would look nice, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of this magenta. A little bit of yellow, and some white, pink color. I'm just gonna start with small little flower buds, maybe coming out the top here. These ones are just not quite open yet. And then you can take a little bit more magenta down here and a tiny bit of blue to make a slightly darker, it's gonna make like a purpley color. You can use this as your shadow, a little bit down here on the bottoms. And then just take a little bit of this color, make a really light pink color. Okay, so a super light pink, and we're gonna put this up here at the top, like a little highlight. For the main flower, I'm gonna start with a triangle shape, and then add on the petals. It's kind of like a squiggly oval shape. And then I'll go ahead and add another flower. And you can add as many flowers to your vines as you like. I'm only gonna do 3 fully bloomed flowers, just so it doesn't take away from the rest of the painting. And finally, a much larger flower down here on the bottom, and this one is gonna be facing us. So this just has these nice like frilly petal shapes, and right now it kind of just looks like a blob, but it'll look like a flower once we add all the details. So now we're gonna go ahead and add some shadows. We're gonna mix that purpley color with the blue and magenta. We wanna add our shadows to the triangle parts of the flower, and that helps separate the petals from the base. And we're also gonna add this into the center of the flowers to create that depth, like there's a hole kind of going down into the center of the flower. We'll do this for each flower. All right, now back to that super light pink color, and we're gonna add light pink highlights around the outside of the petals. And again, we're gonna do this for each flower. Add that little pink highlight. And now we're gonna go back to the medium color, and we're gonna blend these together. So we're gonna blendy, blendy, blend, and we'll wanna do this for each flower. We're also gonna be going back and forth between all of our different colors now to kind of get these colors to blend and create some depth and detail on our flowers. And this will work best if these flowers are still a little bit wet, like if each of the colors are a little wet so they blend together. But even if they're not, you can just keep going back and forth. As you can see, I'm doing back and forth between each of the colors, kind of blending them in to to each other, creating that kind of striped effect to get that nice frilly look of our flowers. And this process will probably take a little while. This was the longest part of the painting, so just want to keep working those flowers until you get them just how you want them. And again, I'm going to do this to each of the flowers. And then we'll go in for an even brighter highlight. This is gonna be more of a yellow, so it looks like a little bit of sun hitting the edges of our flower petals. So we're gonna mix up that white and yellow and add this to the very edges. And we wanna go pretty sparingly with this color. This is more of a highlight color. And back to that pink again. We're just gonna keep on blending. You'll see I kind of play around with the flowers quite a lot, just using the different pinks until I get just the right effect for them. I also like to use some of the pink on the leaves and the stems on the shadowy side. It adds a nice little contrast and a pop of that color in there. So I'll go ahead and put some of that magenta on the leaves as well. And then just some final touch-ups on the flowers. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix up some orange and create the pollen inside of the flowers. So this is some yellow and magenta. And we're gonna go ahead and on each of the flowers add in that little bit of pollen, starting with orange. And of course we're gonna give it a little highlight with a brighter yellow. So that's some yellow and white mixed together. And then go ahead and add that to each of the flowers. And of course, you can add this for more little final highlights and touch-ups on your flowers. Like I said, I just couldn't stop messing with the flowers. Okay, so now time for our fairy. I'm gonna use a small brush and going back to that dark purple color, so that was blue and magenta. And of course you can make your fairy silhouette any color you like. I just thought this would be a nice color. And we want her to be facing this main flower here, and you want her to be proportionate to the flowers. I'm going to start with just a circle for her head. And I'm just going to add on the bottom half of the face. So bringing this down to create like a chin and a jaw. I'm gonna add some hair onto her, and it could be whatever hairstyle you like. I'm just doing like a little cute bun. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a neck next. And an oval shape for the torso. do a circle for the pelvis area. I'm just going to connect that to the torso. And then we're going to bring down our legs. And you always want to keep double checking that these are proportionate. It's probably best if you use like a reference picture to go by, especially if you're not used to drawing human figures. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little foot on there for her. And before I add the second foot, I just want to make sure that it's proportionate, that the legs are about the same size. And so you can use different ways, like just using the brush to measure that out, just to make sure everything's proportionate. Go ahead and add that second foot on there. And now I'm going to go ahead and add the arms. And I just want to make sure that they connect to the flower, and not really going into great detail on her hands. It's kind of just a little shadow there. And then the arms are just kind of that V shape connecting her torso. And then just add any final little touch-ups. And that's it for the fairy. So we're going to go ahead and add some wings for her. And I'm using a really pale purple color. And you can see it wasn't showing up, so I'm going to go back over it with an even lighter color just to brighten it up so you can really see it pop off the background. And you can design her wings however you like. I just did some kind of generic like fairy wings. And I fill in the back wings a little bit more solid, but then the front wings, I want them to be more transparent. So you can see I like smudged the paint, and I'm using a really watery consistency paint so that it's transparent. And to finish off the painting, we're gonna add all kinds of little magical sparkles. So a little fairy dust all over. And a little trick to making the fairy dust look like it sparkles is you're gonna use watery paint, and then you put a little dot and smudge it first, so you get like kind of a fuzzy little circle, and then you go back and put a brighter dot on the center of it, and it will make it look like it's sparkling. And that's how I did the little sparkles for the fairy dust all over the painting. And that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna go ahead and fill up as much fairy dust on my painting as I would like, and you're all done. And that's your magical fairy garden painting. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more. And if you have any suggestions on what I should paint next, please let me know down in the comments below. And I do have a few new ideas for the channel, so keep an eye out for that. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Oh, and don't forget to stay safe and wash your damn hands.
Wash your hands, keep your distance, drink your water.
Wash your damn hands. And stay away from people. Stay inside. Don't leave your house.
Wash your hands, keep your distance, drink your water.
Stay home.
Yeah, stay home. Stay home and paint.
Don't go out into this crazy, crazy world. Just stay home and make pretty paintings.
Now let's do a real take.